Welcome to Wine Vault TV, New Zealand's most passionate wine programme. Today I've got your chairman of the New Zealand Wine Growers, aren't you?
That's right, yes.
Stuart Smith, chairman of New Zealand Wine Growers, but also of Fairhall, Downs and Torea Wines. What's the two labels about?
Well, initially, Fairhall Downs was being served in Wolfgang Puck restaurants in the US, and they came to us and asked for a wine by the glass that was a little more up front. And so that was really where Torea began, and we started wine by the glass in the Wolfgang Puck restaurants in Vegas in particular. And Torea, we thought, worked really well there. We thought this is a good concept, and we could use it here in New Zealand. So that's what we've done. So Torea is about being varietal, being honest, and being wines from the land that the grapes are grown on. They're all comes off our vineyard, except for a very small portion of the Pinot Noir, which comes from a next door neighbour's property.
So what varietals do you make of Torea?
We make Sauvignon, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Right, okay.
And the Fairhall Downs, by contrast, is really about subtlety and a little bit extra, which we are often asked, so this is your second label or whatever. I wholeheartedly reject that.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's not that at all. It's they are aimed at completely different consumers in a lot of ways, and for me personally, often I would go for the Torea if I'm having a glass of wine, and if I'm looking for something a little bit more intellectual, and having with food, more often than not, I'd be going for the Fairhall.
So there's a big price differential between the two?
Well, there's not that big a price differential. Torea is line priced, so it's all priced at around the same price as Fairhall Downs Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
So at the current pricing, just under $20. So.
And being the chairman of New Zealand Wine Growers, does that help or hinder your wine? Your personal wine, like Fairhall Downs and Torea?
I don't think it really has an impact one way or the other. I think you don't go in for those roles to try and increase sales. That's not wouldn't be the object. I mean, that's a separate part of what I do, and it's for me, I find it a very rewarding role. I get to meet a lot of different people, and if you're passionate about an industry, you can sit back and say, why aren't people doing this and why aren't they doing that? Well, you can get out and do something about it.
I should imagine you've been pretty active of late, given that the harvest results have just come through, which I was quite surprised it was only a drop of 7%.
Yes, but the numbers in terms of tonnes are fairly large, and 265,000 tonnes was a number that New Zealand Wine Growers had identified, much to the Commerce Commission's alarm, which would be a number that the industry could handle and would start to bring the industry back towards a balanced position. And we have in fact almost hit that, 266,000 tonnes, so that's as close as you're going to get, and I think that's a wonderful opportunity now for the industry to move forward. We have to be, like any industry, market-led. If you stock wines in your store that nobody wants to buy, you're not going to stay in business very long. If we as an industry produce more wine than people want, and we don't hit those quality targets that we can do, we're not going to stay in business.
Which, for me, 08 was the start of that.
Yes.
And for me, there's multifactorial, apart from the economic crisis over in the UK and, well, globally, that we were starting to see a more homogenous style, a sweeter style, as well. So it didn't matter whose wine you were buying, you were going to get a fairly similar product.
I think there's a fair amount of truth in that. And I think we should also say that there were some pretty decent wines made in
absolutely,
some very good wines, and I think absolutely people. I think it's fair to say that some people took their eye off the ball, and they were looking to make a profit rather than to make wine. And I think you can, if you, in my humble opinion, if you go out there with a passion to make wine, then the profits will look after themselves. Of course, you can't completely forget about the business side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you go in with a passion and you work that way, then the industry will look after you. If you go the other way and you just aim at profits, then you will inevitably take your eye off the quality end of the game and start to cut corners, and that will cost you. And the worldwide consumers have a huge array of choices that they can make.
Yeah.
And if you don't deliver, they'll just go somewhere else. So
I mean, 08 was fairly unfortunate. The size of the vintage, and plus kind of the harvest conditions.
Yes.
But also kind of there was some massive plantings as well coming online. So I'm a big advocate for a little appellation around Marlborough. I know that New Zealand wine growers don't really like appellations and stuff like that.
Well, there are a lot of reasons for appellations, which we can discuss when the camera's not rolling. But I think actually Marlborough has a pretty good line around it, which is, I like to term it an economic contour that flows around Marlborough.
Right,
and on one side of that economic contour line, it's profitable to grow grapes and make wine, and on the other side it isn't. And that line moves around a bit according to market conditions. But on one side, you simply don't get a high enough, reliable enough yield to actually cover your costs. Yield is important, and too much yield is important as well. But if you don't have a reasonable sized crop, you're not going to cover your costs. And you can't stay in business if you don't cover your costs.
I mean, we're seeing that right now with the grape prices down in Marlborough.
Absolutely, and they are at low levels, and growers are going through a very difficult time at the moment. Wineries have been through a difficult time from 08. I mean, they're still in it though. Really, and they are. Absolutely, and naturally you're seeing that flow through to grape prices. Well, one of the larger wineries who remain nameless told me a while ago that he can't wait until the grape prices get over $2,000 a tonne again, because that's when we make money, because wine's in short supply. It goes around. You can't have low grape prices and high wine prices. It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely.
The two are very interconnected, and it's a great study on Economics 101 and when we get right through this and we get our industry right back on
So when do you
track.
predict that?
Well, I think we need to show restraint right through to 2012, and that means...
So it's only a couple of years.
Yes, but we have to keep growing our sales internationally. So it's not just a one-track thing. We need to keep keep our yields under control. We need to keep growing our markets, and we have grown packaged exports by 14% year to date.
I think
that's a fantastic result. In this climate, that's a fantastic result.
I mean, there are very few other industries doing the same.
Most are going backwards. It has been at a cost to profitability, which is flowing right through to great prices. And that's really tough, and it's very sad to see people under pressure that they are. But
well, one of the saddest days for me with New Zealand wine was when New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc hit £3.99 in the supermarket in the UK, because I don't think it does anybody any good.
It doesn't do anyone any good, and I think the wines, some of the wines that are selling at those lower prices are quite good wines, but some of them back in 08 weren't very good, and that's not good for us as an industry. No,
because the people that are purely buying on price, if that's their first experience of New Zealand wine, right, they're not going to come back to it.
No, they're not, and
if it's bad quality 08 or I think wine.
Like 08, you can might be able to get away with it once, you can't continue to get away with it. And I think like the 09 wines were good. 010, our own wines are tasting fantastic. Everyone I've spoken to says the same thing.
They've got to.
Yeah, they do, but behind the scenes they'll tell you what they think really, and the wines are looking good, and they should do. We had a fantastic vintage, and yields were under control. Yields are really important, not just for quality but also for reliability, and if you've got too much crop on, you've got a much higher risk, and when and if bad weather hits, it hits you much harder if you've got a high yield. So we've really got to just keep taking care of business, and that's what we're trying to do now, and everybody's...
It's one of the fundamentals, isn't it?
It is, and a good fright. It's not too bad for anyone.
Absolutely. So you're going to tell me about Fairhall's down... Now this is the Hugo 08.
Yes.
And it's called